Hey, what's going on guys? My name is Omega and welcome back to another Apex Legends video. So in today's video, I wanted to rank all of the Apex Legends characters from worst to best. Now I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube of people already doing this, but in the past month we've had a lot of changes coming to the characters in Apex Legends. Plus we've had a new release of Octane about 2 months ago, so there's a lot of new things in the game that a lot of people haven't covered in these ranking videos. I also want to help those out that don't really know which character to play next. Whether you've played Apex Legends since release, whether you just started playing, or whether you have no idea what this game is, I think this video will be valuable to pretty much anyone out there. Now before I start this list, I just want to say that all of the characters in Apex Legends are pretty balanced in my personal opinion, especially after the recent patches that Respawn implemented into the game. Not to say that the worst character is someone that you should never play, but compared to the other characters, there's something about them that is not as viable. I just want to make it clear that I think gun skill is much more important than how you play pretty much any character in this game, but there are some characters that do have a benefit in terms of team play, which is basically what Apex Legends is all about. So starting us off with the least viable character in Apex Legends, it's gotta be Mirage. Now the reason that I say Mirage is the least viable character is basically because he's considered an offensive legend, but he doesn't really have any offensive abilities. The other problem with Mirage is that he doesn't really offer any value to the rest of his team. Pretty much every other character in Apex Legends has either an ability or a passive that helps other members of their team when it's used. With Mirage, it's kind of all abilities that are a little bit selfish. His decoy does alert when an enemy shoots at the decoy, but the problem is that since we're so far along into Apex Legends, most people can realize when a decoy is there and when it's just Mirage. It's really easy to tell the difference, and I think that's why Mirage is probably one of the least viable characters in this game. Also, his ultimate is just not really that great. When you use it, you can't actually shoot or use your gun, and you turn kind of like half invisible for about 5 or 6 seconds with no way to go back into normal mode until the ultimate is over. So it's really frustrating to play Mirage. While I think he is a fun character to play, he just doesn't really offer that much value in terms of team play. So the next legend on our list, unfortunately, is Caustic. And the reason I say unfortunately is because I really think Caustic is a super fun character to play, but compared to the other legends, he's just not as viable. And the only problem with him is that his traps are meant to be used inside, and that's really where they're the most effective. But the problem is that most of the map in Apex Legends is outside, and there's a lot of open spaces. Now recently, Caustic got a buff where he does take 10% less damage, and his gas traps plus his ultimate deal more damage in the first place. So if you're inside with a Caustic, he can just destroy people. But the problem is that most of the time when you're fighting, you're probably not inside, you're most likely outside, and it's really easy to get out of his traps when they're just placed outdoors rather than when they're inside a house and there's really not many places that you can go. I think Caustic could become more viable if in the future of Apex Legends the map changes and there's more buildings and more close quarter combat areas set, but I think for now in the current state of Apex Legends he's definitely in the bottom tier in terms of viability. So coming in at number 7 is going to be Gibraltar. Now Gibraltar and Caustic are two of the tank characters in Apex Legends, but the thing about Gibraltar is that he does offer a little bit more of a team play viability compared to Caustic. With Gibraltar's shield that you can throw down, it's really nice, especially when you have a Lifeline on your team. You can just drop the shield and then Lifeline can revive your teammate, and it makes for some really good synergy play. The only problem with the shield is obviously you can't shoot from inside the shield. You're kind of just a sitting duck, but it is also really good if you have a shotgun and you're kind of waiting for the enemy to push you inside your bubble. You can really throw someone off when they kind of come in and you just pull out your shotgun and just one-shot them. The other problem with Gibraltar is he's just so freaking big. I think at this point he is the biggest character in Apex Legends, so shooting a Gibraltar is like trying to shoot a tree. Like, it's just so easy to do, especially from across the map. Like, if you're trying to shoot a Gibraltar compared to when you're shooting at a Wraith from the same distance, you're most likely going to deal a lot more damage to the Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar also got the buff where he takes 10% less damage, but when you really think about that, if you're hitting every single shot just because he's so big, 10% isn't really going to do a lot, and it might take you maybe like half a second more to kill him compared to normal. So coming in at number 6, I'd have to give this spot to Octane. Now, this is probably going to be a debatable spot because Octane is definitely one of my favorite legends in the game. The only problem is that his abilities, like Mirage's, are very selfish and don't really affect the rest of his team too much. His ultimate is really the only ability that his teammates could, benefit from at all, and when you throw that down, they can obviously kind of fly up into the air, which is good if you're trying to get onto rooftops and trying to, get to hard to reach places, or if you just want to flank the enemy team. But the rest of his abilities are very selfish, and the first one being that his actual ability just makes him run faster. So a lot of the times Octanes will pop that ability and kind of just run straight into the team fight and leave everyone else behind them. It's really hard to say that Octane is kind of at the bottom of the list because, like I said, he's so much fun to play. It's just his abilities aren't really that viable and they don't really help out the rest of your team all that much. Like I said in the beginning of this video though, I think gun skill kind of outplays, whether a legend is actually viable or not. But if we're just talking about the legend's abilities, Octane definitely does not have a lot to offer compared to other people in this game. Coming in at the number 5 spot has to be Bangalore. Now I think a lot of people don't really give Bangalore a lot of credit because all of her abilities are super good and synergize really well with basically every other legend in the game. Her passive allows her to gain speed when she gets shot at, so it's really frustrating if you're coming from the other player shooting at a Bangalore, because as soon as you start shooting at her, she just books it and literally just runs full speed ahead, and it makes her a lot harder to shoot, especially from a distance. Her passive is her smoke, and it allows her just to pretty much drop a smoke grenade, which makes it super easy for Bangalore to disengage and flank the enemy, and it also allows her to pick up her teammates really easily because you can just drop a smoke grenade on your down teammate and just run over and pick them up super quickly. Her ultimate is also really helpful when you're trying to either engage or disengage with the enemy. Basically, you throw it down, it rains down rockets, then after a few seconds, the rockets will explode, dealing damage and slowing the enemy. And this is just really good because if they do get hit by one of these rockets, it's really hard for them to actually kind of start shooting again, because from their perspective, after they get hit by her ultimate, the screen is shaking, you can't really hear footsteps too well, and so it's really easy to flank them or just rush them when they're that disoriented. So coming in at the number 4 spot is everyone's favorite legend, Wraith. And the reason probably that she's the favorite is just because she's the only one in the game with a knife set, but I also think her abilities just work really well in terms of team synergy, and she can basically do well with any other legend in the game. One of the things that I like the best about Wraith is that with her passive, it allows her to pretty much let her team know when anyone is aiming down sights onto her, and it's super helpful. But the only problem is that sometimes it is hard to hear when Wraith announces that someone is aiming down sights on her, just because other characters are talking at the same time, there's other noises going on in the game. So when you have a Wraith on your team, you have to be sure to be listening to the comms and what the characters are actually saying. Her ultimate is also super helpful. Basically, it just allows her to place a portal in 2 different areas that you can travel to and from. It makes it really easy if you want to pop your ability, throw down your ultimate of the portal, and just keep running into the direction of the enemy while your teammates are, a good distance behind you, and then they can just run into the portal and get the flank on whoever it is that you're fighting. You can also use it in kind of like a defensive aspect, where if you're getting rushed by an enemy, you could throw your portal down and keep running behind you, and then pretty much set up the portal in an area where your teammates can kind of just wait for the enemy to go through your portal, and you can just ambush them that way, and it catches a lot of people off guard. Coming in at the number 3 spot has to be Bloodhound for me. Now, Bloodhound is just an amazing legend overall because of his passive, and his passive allows you to track enemies in terms of where they walked, whether they jumped, or whether they healed in a certain spot, and with the ping system, it's super easy to let your teammates know what's going on with your passive. His ultimate is also really nice because you basically go full predator mode, and it makes it super easy for you to actually see people because they're just glowing red, and you also get a speed boost, which is nice because you can actually catch up to them. The only problem with Bloodhound, and I think this is actually a pretty big issue, is that when you're playing Bloodhound on console, or maybe if you're playing on a PC that's not the best PC, his ultimate will make your game lag like fucking crazy. And it gets to the point where playing Bloodhound isn't even that fun, especially for me on Xbox, just because I have the older Xbox, and whenever I pop the Bloodhound ult, my game starts to lag. I can hear my Xbox just dying in the background because it's trying so hard to keep the game running, because the FPS just drops to an insanely low level. But I do like Bloodhound because when I play him on my PC, I don't get any FPS drop just because my PC is obviously better than my Xbox. but it's still a struggle when you're playing on console. I don't know how it is with the newer like Xbox One X and like the PS4 Pro, but at least for me, when you pop his ultimate, it is a struggle. Coming in at the number 2 spot for me has to be Lifeline. All of Lifeline's abilities are just fucking amazing compared to pretty much every other legend in this game. Her passive allows her to pick up your teammates a lot faster, and it also drops a shield so that no one can shoot you while you're picking up your down teammates. It makes it super easy if you want to play more passive and defensive, because you can basically just shoot from afar, wait till your teammates get knocked down, and either clean up by killing the enemies or by just quickly going over, reviving them, and then dropping your health drone so that they can heal up a lot faster. Her ultimate is also super good, especially if you find ultimate accelerants in the beginning of the game. It basically just allows her to drop a care package that can contain armor up to level 4, which is the purple armor. Now, coming in at the number 1 spot is definitely my favorite legend in the game, not because his abilities are just beyond amazing for positioning and helping out your team, but also just because his voice lines are probably the best in the game. Coming in at number 1 is going to be Pathfinder. And one of the reasons that I picked Pathfinder as my number 1 spot is basically just his ultimate allows you to get to places that no other character can get to. It's kind of insane just how OP his ultimate really is, because first off, the cooldown is super fast. It seems like whenever I place Pathfinder's ultimate, it's always back up in like a minute and a half or 2 minutes. You really don't even need to use ultimate accelerants when playing Pathfinder. And 2, you can literally win a fight just by getting to a place that other people can't get to using his zipline. And if other people try to follow you once you're already at the top of that location, it's super easy to just shoot them down because they're ziplining in a straight line. And since you have the higher ground advantage, all you have to do is basically just stand in front of the zipline and mow them down as they're trying to flank you from behind. So guys, that concludes today's ranking video. If you guys think that I made a mistake, or one legend should have been higher or lower than another legend, be sure to drop a comment down below. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to think. Obviously, this is all just my personal opinion, so there's probably some people out there who are just like, no, Caustic is the best, or Pathfinder is the worst character in the game, which I actually don't know if anyone thinks that, because you'd be fucking insane to say that. But let me know what you guys think of this video if you guys want to see more. Thank you again for watching. Be sure to subscribe and like the video if you guys did enjoy and want to see more in the future. But again, I will see you guys next time. Have a great day. Peace out.